Wales is a small, creative and important country, and in the last 25 years there has been a significant change in the field of mental health in our country. This change has aimed to humanise and sensitise mental health service provision, and I give my thanks to the leadership provided by the mental health voluntary sector and to the vision and courage of mental health service users, family members, mental health practitioners and political decision makers in Wales and elsewhere. By the year 2020, according to the World Health Organization, more people in the Western world will have mental health problems and physical ailments. However, the World Health Organization Constitution also states that health is a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. An important implication of this definition is that mental health is more than just the absence of mental disorders or disabilities. In recent times, we have seen the publication of the mental health measure for Wales and the strategy document that provide a stimulus to implement a recovery and a locally community-based approach to planning and delivering services. Consequently, Hywel Dda University Health Board and the Abertawe Bro Morgannwg University Health Board have seized this opportunity by entering into a partnership with the International Mental Health Collaborating Network and West Wales Action for Mental Health. The aim of this partnership is to change the thinking, practice and organisation of mental health care so that we work alongside local communities within a local whole life, whole person recovery approach. I have worked for the last 27 years in Wales and elsewhere to bring about a change in the way people with diagnosed mental health problems are viewed by society, not as biochemical problems to be treated and cured, but as citizens with full human rights who have lived experience of distress and trauma. In my view, there is always meaning in madness, in inverted commas, and there is no us and them. There is just us. I am a voice hearer, and in the past I have been a user of mental health services, but that does not necessarily mean that I should be seen as being severely mentally ill, in inverted commas. However, because of my experiences, I was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder in 1983, and I used mental health services for 28 years. I still hear voices and see visions. Today I no longer regard them as symptoms of an illness, but as part of who I am. I accept my voices. I am not alone. People have been hearing voices since the dawn of humanity, and many notable and ordinary people now and in the past have heard voices and seen visions and are well as defined by the World Health Organization. My experience of mental health care was mostly positive. However, no one helped me to deal with my voices. What did help was finding ways to cope with my voices and visions in an empowering and emancipatory manner, an approach developed by the Hearing Voices movement that acknowledged and respected my beliefs and explanation and sought to find meaning in my experiences rather than eradicating them with medication. One person putting his or her head above the parapet enables others to write or to speak and thereby become emancipated, as has been the case for me. In conclusion, Wales is a significant and courageous nation. This is the case in the field of mental health. The Welsh Assembly government in Cardiff is a pioneer, and by making mental health measure a statutory requirement, it is leading the world. This is a great time of opportunity for creating changes that are founded on the needs and harnesses the capacities of the communities of South and West Wales. we have the means and the vision to create a whole life, whole person, and whole community approach to mental health. I believe that the time is right. I'm sorry I didn't begin with jokes. I haven't made any jokes in the speech, but it's very important, in my opinion, that we get mental health care right in Wales. And I'd like to present Mr. Phillip Chick.
Thank you, Hal, and actually that leads very neatly into what I wanted to say. The first thing I have to do is apologise that Andrea Gray is not here with me. That might make things simpler, given that we're stretched on time, and it probably gives me more of a freer rein to reflect on the things I was going to say, because I'm not here as a member of the policy division in Welsh Government. I'm here to give my reflections on issues in relation to opportunities for a recovery approach in Wales. Given the time, I'm going to cut to the chase, so I'll skip some of my slides, I think. But what I wanted to do was to consider the climate for change, because that, I think, is absolutely critical in terms of really what we've heard a lot of today is what I would describe as being the art and the science of recovery. And I'm going to talk much more now about the politics of recovery and the political systems that we work in and how they provide opportunities for us to grasp the moment for change. The first one, and this is the absolutely crucial issue, I think, that really does lie behind everything I've heard this morning and how it chimes with really some of the thinking I've had, is we know that we are in the midst of a perfect storm. We have an ageing population, we have financial stringency, we have worse health here in Wales than they enjoy in other parts of the UK, particularly in England, and we have changes in the presenting problems that are coming to our mental health system, both in primary care and the complexity of presentations, particularly around comorbid conditions of physical health or substance misuse and mental health problems. All of that places our systems under enormous pressure, and the pressure is all about supply and demand. Less money, more demand, worse health, worsening health, and that is going to put our systems under pressure. But what I would say to you is that gives us an opportunity to grasp the moment, because if anything, the storm that we find ourselves in means things have to change. Doing less of the same will not give us the results that we want. So I think minds and eyes are open to change and opportunity. That's really the crux of what I want to say. This is interesting only on the basis, this is the Derek Wanless review. If you look at the date, 2003, it's exactly as pertinent today as it was then, and what it's saying is citizens have to be far more involved in the way that we work. And the last sentence, the health and social care systems services, through integrating their thinking about enhancing productivity and learning what a holistic, patient-centred service really means. 11 years on, we haven't managed to achieve it across the NHS. This is not specifically to mental health, but it's saying we have to engage the public, we have to engage individuals, and we have to look at what whole service change looks like and a whole person approach. So 11 years on, we're still struggling. Further messages from Wanless, and a message here from the Christie Review, which is in Scotland, a very similar review, only this was done after the financial collapse. And importantly, they pull out that working closely with individuals and communities to understand their needs, maximise talents and resources, support self-resilience and build resilience are crucial to how Scotland will deal with their demand and capacity issues that result from the financial crisis. If that's not describing the need for recovery, I don't know what is. It's putting the relationship of the service and the individual and communities absolutely at the centre. So, in Wales, what do we have? I think the one thing we have, apart from the perfect storm, is in many respects we have the perfect political position being set out. Mark Drakeford, our Health and Social Services Minister, who is constantly talking about the importance of co-production of prudent healthcare, and those principles becoming embedded in our strategy, gives us a platform to move this agenda forward. We have permission to make change. That's the crucial factor. We have a necessity to make change because of the environment we live and we work in, and we have permission to make change. We have to grab that moment. And if we talk about co-production and we talk about prudent healthcare, you can take two perspectives on it. You can take the Bee Gees perspective, later followed by Westlife, or you can take the extreme perspective. The Bee Gees said it's only words, and I hear that from a lot of people around in the system, that co-production is just meaningless, it's just about talking to people a bit about the services that we want and prudent healthcare. The reality is it's more than words. Our minister is very serious about this. He sees co-production as an exciting opportunity of engaging with the public and engaging with individuals in terms of how we go about delivering healthcare. And he's really serious about making this stuff stick. But I'd like to come back to co-production because this is the critical factor around the relationship we have with people that use our services. And it's quite simple. It's a quite simple mathematical equation that lies at the heart of co-production. People think co-production is just about having a conversation. It's far more than that. The biggest strength that comes with a co-production approach is this mathematical equation. 1 + 0 = 1. If we see the people that use our services as simply consumers of care, consumers of service who bring nothing to the table, bring nothing to the relationship, we won't use their assets, we won't recognise their assets, and we won't build their assets into what we produce. If we see their assets as being equal and on a par with what we bring to them, 1 + 1 = 2, we get a much better outcome in terms of the delivery of what we're trying to achieve, which is recovery, which is an asset-based approach, which is about building individuals, building communities, building resilience, and building a self-management approach. So co-production is not just talking to people, it's about recognising them as an asset and using that asset in the way we go about doing our work. This is something which is I won't go through it, but it's worth looking at. It's on the New Economics Foundation website. It's a blog that they've put up there, the work they've done with Mind, looking at the benefits of a co-production approach in mental health. And it shows that there are huge assets for individuals and communities, and equally there are huge benefits for the service system in terms of increased capacity and impact on public services and a greater monetary value to individuals and the state. What it's showing is we have a broke system which will become more broke as more demand is placed on it, but if we use co-production effectively and we change our practice, it's not easy, it's very, very challenging. This is the means to the end, and this is the means through a recovery approach that we can fix the problem. Because at the end of the day, if you have a demand and capacity mismatch, you've got two options. You raise the bar again, which means you keep more people out of your system, or you improve flow and inclusion. You actually move people through the system, and a recovery approach absolutely feeds into the latter, which means we get the right person in the right place at the right time in front of the right practitioner, and we have a proper adult-to-adult relationship with that individual, and through that we get better outcomes and we get a system which is not broken. Prudent healthcare, similar. These are the principles that are set out by the Bevan Commission. Importantly, and it very much chimes with things that have been said this afternoon, healthcare that fits the need and circumstances of the citizen, actively avoids harm and waste, abandons treatment and care that brings little or no benefit, and maximises the limited financial resources we can draw upon, and it adopts an evidence-based medicine at scale and pace. All of those issues in looking at the use of medication, at looking at the relationships between service users and people who are delivering care, at the way that we engage people and the way that sometimes we hold people for too long to the point where we're doing them harm, is crucial in terms of looking at how recovery is part of the solution. And importantly, the Minister makes it absolutely clear that this is not about rationing. This is about a prudent approach to medicine, a prudent approach to the way that we deliver care. And in mental health, that's absolutely vital that we embrace it in the ways that fit for mental health. So, we've also got legislation. I will not labour this because I'm conscious of the time. But we have the mental health measure. Now, there are two ways we can go about evaluating the measure and looking at how it's been applied. We can look at the letter of the law, which is how much of it has been done, how we're hitting our targets in terms of time. That's important. The critical matter, though, is about the spirit of the law. So the mental health measure part 2 and part 3 should be ensuring that we're looking at 8 areas of life and taking a holistic view on how we can enable recovery. And going back to that equation, if we use those 8 areas of life and we take a cross-sectoral approach and we start looking at the various components, we move from 1 + 1 = 2 to 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = 4 if we're using education, if we're using the outdoors, if we're using employment. So we're building into our resource, which sits within health and social care, a big panoply of other resources that we can draw on through a recovery approach, and by looking at the various aspects of a person's life that needs to be assisted in terms of their recovery, and that gives us the capacity that will help us to meet the need that is in front of us. If we look at part 1, importantly, something which has been coming through in recent times, crucially important, and there are many of us in the room that have been working on looking at new self-management techniques, much more available at a public level, so people can just engage those on a universal basis or a proportionate universal basis, so that we target them at those in greatest needs. But they enhance flow, they moderate demand, and most importantly, they empower people to self-manage their conditions. Those are beginning to roll out in Wales, and I think we'll see far more of those in the coming months and years. Importantly though, and this is the critical point really about, this is the time for us to change, this is the climate that we can grasp and will drive the change. And what's important, for those of you that know Malcolm Gladwell's work around the tipping point, we heard someone actually use the language this morning about creating a virus, creating an epidemic of recovery, and that's absolutely what has to happen. And if you look at what Malcolm Gladwell talks about, he talks about the power of context. Well, the context is we have to change. We should be pushing on the doors of our leaders who are wanting the kind of change that's being described in the room today. There's the stickiness factor, which means you need to get some key messages that people can understand, that resonate with them, that actually tells them we have a solution to the problem you've got. They're the sticky messages that we've been hearing in the room today about the nature of narrative, the importance of dialogue, the importance of relationships, and moving much more towards those approaches rather than the historical approaches that we've had. And finally, we need the law of the few, which means there are those people who have the particular skills that can engage those people that need to hear those sticky messages. And that's what you are. I mean, when I was coming here today, I knew who I'd see before I walked in the door, because it's always the same people. These are the people, you are the people that believe in this stuff. You get it, which is a very, very important factor. You really believe in it. You support it and promote it. All of those things are critical if we are to be the few who can take these sticky messages and create the epidemic of recovery that is required, because it needs champions. It needs people from both the bottom and the top to deliver this. The minister is creating an environment for this change, and every one of you that's described your services this morning is absolutely alongside that message. So if we're going to make it happen, then we need to look at local development and use the environment for growth to ensure that we take the things that we've heard about today and they develop and they expand and they spread. We need executives and clinical leaders to be part of the law of the few. They have to be the few that get this. And if they're not getting it now, it's our job, and it is our responsibility, to make sure they understand, they hear it, they get it, and they embed this within their thinking about how the strategy is taken forward, how the law is applied, and how we deal with this crisis, which is this storm above our health and social care services. We need outcomes from local initiatives to be captured, measured, and be able to be compared in a meaningful way. But we need to make sure that co-production is truly understood and embraced. And we have to ensure, I think Carol is absolutely right, we are blessed really to have Wales-specific legislation around mental health. But if we don't apply the spirit of the law, only the letter of the law, we won't reap the benefits that it can provide. Thank you. I think everyone can go home now. Yeah. How are you? Sorry.
Fusion right till the end. Thank you ever so much for all the speakers today, everybody that's spoken. It's been a really inspirational day. Thanks for sticking right to the end. We are the hardcore. Safe journeys home, and we'll see you all tomorrow morning, 9:15. It starts again, so thank you.